Hi, and welcome back to Heart and Health Wellness. I'm your host, Dr. Melissa Welch, and I'm so glad that you are here. If you are just joining for the first time, I'm glad that you found us. This is a place where we talk all about how to simplify biopsychosocial spiritual wellness, which is basically a mouthful to say that we care about your physical health, your mental health, your social health and relationships, and also how you find purpose and meaning in life. We keep things nice and casual and simple over here, and sometimes the kitty cats join us too. If you are tuning in on audio and you've never tuned in on video, today would be the day to do that. I just got my hair done, and it's not going to look this good for another 12 weeks probably. But just as a reminder, you can listen in on Spotify. You can also watch on Spotify. There's an option for that. And then I also upload every episode to YouTube, so you have lots of options there. Today, we are going to be talking all about perfectionism. We're going to talk all about not only what perfectionism is, but also what it isn't, and how you can move past perfectionism in order to really go forward with courage and curiosity and really live out that life that you want to live. So perfectionism is something that I have struggled with for a very long time. I like to joke that I am a recovering perfectionist, but if I'm being truthful with myself and with you, there are still times that I struggle with perfectionism. So this is something that's very near and dear to my heart, but I've made a lot of progress with it over the time. And so I'm hoping to share some of those skills and insights with you today to help you if that's something that you struggle with too. So if you are someone who is constantly second guessing yourself, or maybe you are the ultimate procrastinator and you delay big projects until the very end because you're afraid it's not going to be good enough, or you push yourself way over your limits until you're absolutely exhausted because you want it to be just right. I see you. I get you. I have been there, and I'm hopeful that I'm kind of past that. But like I said, it is sometimes still something that I struggle with from time to time. So I get it. We're going to talk about letting perfectionism go so it's no longer running our lives, how to start living a life as a lifelong learner and really harnessing that stance of curiosity and courage as well. So you can really go after that life of wellness that you're wanting to achieve without all of the concerns about it being just perfect get in the way. Also, you may have noticed already, I am battling with my voice today. I've got a little bit of a cold going on, and so I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm a frog today, or if my voice sounds like a frog today. I apologize for that. And also, if my voice gets too dry, we might have to cut this a bit early, but I'm going to try and get through it pretty quick, so it shouldn't be a super long episode. But thank you for hanging in there and sticking it out with me. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about what is perfectionism and what is it not. And let's be really clear about the definition here. So perfectionism is the belief that something is not good enough unless it's absolutely flawless. And so it really gets into this pressure to perform at a highest level possible, and really having an assumption that if it's anything less than that highest level, that it's not good enough. And that not good enough is the thing that's really key here. It's often rooted in that fear of failure or criticism or just not being enough yourself. We want our things to be good enough because we're afraid that we're not good enough. That's ultimately where it comes from. So if you're someone who likes to really achieve and wants things to be just right, wants to be just so, there's a good chance that there's something underlying there of fearing not being good enough. And I think it's important to start out with that awareness if that's what's going on for you, because that's going to give you the motivation and the insight to be able to make the change that you are wanting to make. What is perfectionism not? Well, it's not healthy striving for excellence. It's not a bad thing to want to achieve greatness or to be successful or to do something in an excellent way. That is not inherently a bad thing. That's not unhealthy. When it gets to the point of keeping you from being able to do what you want to do or what you need to do because of a fear of it not being good, that's when it becomes unhealthy. It's also not wanting to grow or improve. Feeling like you're not where you want to be and you want to be a better version of yourself is not inherently a bad thing. That is not necessarily perfectionism. It's good for us to want to grow. It's good for us to want to improve and to change in a healthy way. When it becomes something that is obsessive or limiting us from our ability to really be proud of where we're at or what we have achieved, that's when it becomes unhealthy and too much and gets into that area of perfectionism. It's also not caring about quality. It's good to want things to be of good quality. It's good to want to produce something that's going to be helpful and viewed as professional or whatever it might be. Producing something of quality, being proud of what you do, is a good, healthy thing. Again, it's when you become obsessed with that and don't allow yourself to appreciate what you are doing well, and you're focused on critiquing it too much, that it becomes problematic. So again, with everything, or at least I'm hopeful that I'm helping you see that with a lot of things, there's gray area, right? It's not black and white here. There's room for improvement. There's room for being proud of what you're doing well so far and seeing opportunities to make it better. And perfectionism is the same way. It's okay to want to strive for better and to want to push yourself to produce something that's of great quality and find ways that you can make it even better. It's not healthy to focus on that so much that you're not able to get things done or it gets in the way. Also, if you're watching today, you will see Reggie is all up in my business right now. Girlfriend is excited that I am home and giving her attention. And sweetheart, I'm just going to have to move you to the floor. I'm so sorry. We will cuddle here in a bit, but you are in the way. Always remember that if you're tuning in on video, get a good glimpse of the cat tails, the cat butts. And if you're a cat person, you'll enjoy that. And if you're a dog person, sorry, I don't have one of those. Okay, so I want to be very clear. Perfectionism is not the same as having high standards. It's high standards plus having a sense of shame and fear, and it leads to burnout. So having high standards is good. Taking it too far is when we get into perfectionism. Not feeling like you're good enough, being afraid of not being accepted or being judged, ridiculed, whatever it might be, and then just feeling absolutely worn out and exhausted because you've pushed yourself too far to strive for this perfectionism. Okay. So I want to be very clear about that. I hope that I've made that obvious. Perfectionism is pushing too far. It is not just wanting to do well and be proud of what you're doing and accomplishing. So now let's talk about how it shows up in real life. I know for me, perfectionism has showed up a lot in school. I can remember back when I was in elementary school and we were doing standardized testing, and I would have such a hard time falling asleep the night before and getting good rest, because I remember school would tell us you have to get a good night's sleep tonight. You have to eat a great breakfast in the morning. It's really important that you do really well on these tests. They created so much stress and pressure that we do really well on these tests. I was someone who did really well in school. That probably doesn't surprise you. And I did really well on those standardized tests. But even then, I remember being so nervous about not doing well enough, not performing at the highest level. Maybe that was rooted from a fear of disappointing teachers or parents or whatever it might be. I don't know. But it fueled a perfectionistic personality from the very beginning. And then that's followed me through college, through grad school, when I would postpone working on something for a very long time, often until the last minute, because I was worried it wasn't going to be good enough. I would do something called the ostrich strategy or technique. And I think I got that from my grad school mentor, Dr. Hudson. She would say, sometimes we ostrich when we just want to stick our heads in the ground and pretend like the project's not happening or that things aren't moving along. And it's easier to just ignore it and pretend like it's not there, when really we needed to be up with our head out of the ground, aware of what was going on, and start making progress on it. And even if it was very slow, steady progress each day, it was still something, and it was better than procrastinating and not working on it at all. And I know in grad school with my master's, but especially in my doctorate program, it was really hard because I wanted what I produced to be just right and good enough. And I had a lot of imposter syndrome of fearing that people would figure out that I didn't belong there and that I wasn't good enough to be in the program or whatever it might be. And that kept me from working on what I needed to work on. So that's what it has looked like for me in school, especially. and even in the workplace some. So I would often end up overthinking, over revising things instead of just working on it to get it done. And I really worried about it not being perfect. So this led to me being not only physically exhausted, a lot of times, I would stay up until the last minute, work really late into the night. And had I been working on it for, I don't know, an hour a day that whole week, I would not be in that situation. So it led to me being physically exhausted, but also mentally exhausted and draining myself mentally, psychologically for feeling like it wasn't good enough. And that shame was really unhealthy. And that's a good way to lead to burnout when you're trying to work on something and just feeling totally done and over it. So eventually the work still got done. And what I always joked about was that it was so frustrating because I would wait until the last minute and then I would still do well on it. It would be good enough, but maybe it wasn't my best work because I was so tired and I had waited. And so it was very ironic that the whole reason that I waited so long was because I wanted it to be perfect. And then in the end, it actually harmed me and I produced something that probably wasn't my best work because of it. So it wasn't great. It definitely came at a cost to my biopsychosocial spiritual wellness. Just wasn't good for me overall, wasn't good for what I was doing. But in the end, it did get done and I still did well enough on it. So I learned this cycle of how I could get away with this and it be good enough. And I think that's how I got away with a lot of stuff going through school, even through grad school, which is not great. So learn from my mistakes or your mistakes. I'm sure you've probably experienced something similar. And let's do as we say, not as we do, right? Learn from our mistakes, move forward in a better direction. So how does it interfere? These are some of the things that it's interfered for me. Maybe this is what you've noticed in your life too. And think about where do you see that perfectionism come up and be disruptive in your daily life? Sometimes it can delay important work from getting done, really pushes the boundaries on deadlines and things like that. It can prevent us from trying new things. Just a fun example. So for me during COVID, I really got into a couple of different hobbies because everybody was doing hobbies at home, right? One was roller skating and one was cooking sourdough. Now, both are difficult and take practice to get a hold of. But one is more precise than the other. So with roller skating, you can really figure out your own way, but in the meantime, you're going to fall a lot and encounter a lot of bruises. At least that was my experience. And so sometimes I would have this hesitancy to even go roller skating, even though I enjoyed it because I knew I was going to fall, or maybe I wasn't going to be able to do that turn like I wanted to be able to do, like the girl on Instagram was doing. And so it would prevent me from even trying something new and learning it because I knew that I wasn't there yet and I wasn't doing it the way that it was supposed to be done, the right way. And with sourdough, the same thing. It felt like such an overwhelming task to measure out all of the measurements just right and get the ratios of the humidity of the dough, of the water and the flour ratios all just right. And of course, if you're a pro at sourdough, it's nothing to make it ultra complicated. But if you're brand new, you just got to mix stuff together and see what happens. And so sometimes it would prevent me from having fun and really being in the moment and enjoying what I was doing because I was so focused on it being just right. Now, I can happily say that with both of those hobbies, with time, I was able to really allow myself to be a learner. And we're going to talk more about that here in a minute as a strategy to overcome perfectionism. But at the beginning, it was really tricky. And a lot of times it kept me from trying something new that could be fun. It also can feed into self-doubt and worrying about if I'm doing it the right way, or someone going to notice that I'm doing it the wrong way, or that I don't belong here, whatever it might be, or burnout, just feeling like I'm not even going to mess with this anymore. It's just not worth it. I'm exhausted, and what's even the point? So really getting into that psychological slump and dark place that is not good for us. It can also rob us of joy in the process. And when I think about watching someone learning something new who's really enjoying it, especially when we think about children who are learning how to play and experiencing new things. There's so much joy and wonder in life. It's exciting, right? And so we can also experience joy in that way when we allow ourselves to be in the mindset of a learner. Again, we're going to move into more of this in just a second. But when we are stuck in this place of judging ourselves, of having shame about not being good enough, it totally robs the fun part of exploring and learning and doing new things. And even if it's not something really exciting, like working on a dissertation, for example, maybe that's not a whole lot of fun for me, but it is something that's going to help me accomplish my goals and achieve something that's important to me. So even if it's not right in the minute joy, it might be joy that's coming in this next chapter when I'm completing this thing that I'm working on. So perfectionism can really be a thief of joy. And I want to encourage you to recognize that for what it is. A lot of us joke about being a perfectionist and trying to make light of it, but there's a real dark side to perfectionism that I think it's healthy to acknowledge that and recognize how it's limiting you from really living out the life that you want to live. And that's why it's important to try and make a change when we can. Okay, so let's talk real quick about some common ways that we try to avoid it. Perfectionism creates this really intense pressure that we either overwork or we just avoid it altogether. I mentioned the ostrich example of just pretending like things are not happening, really trying to delay the work or delay decision making and avoiding things like emails or deadlines or receiving feedback. I remember, especially with any kind of writing assignments, professors would send back their feedback and comments in a Word document. And I remember sometimes getting those emails and just not wanting to open it because I was so fearful of what the criticism would be about how it wasn't good enough. And so instead of being able to just open it and read it, which also included very positive feedback, might I add, it's not like I had these horrible professors who would just tear me apart. They would give me good, helpful, constructive criticism, but they also gave me really encouraging criticism too, or not criticism, but encouraging words and accolades for what I was doing well. But I was totally avoiding that part too, because I was afraid of the criticism that was coming. And so I wouldn't even open this email and give myself the opportunity to learn from it, let it sink in and move forward. And eventually, of course, I had to, but I would put it off for a really long time. And I remember that being a really difficult part of how perfectionism got in the way of getting things done when I needed to get them done. So other behaviors that we do sometimes are disguised as planning, wanting our planner to be just right. I used to be someone who was all about stickers and colors and highlighters for different subjects and topics in my planner. And at some point, you got to stop the planning and just get it done. But sometimes that's a way for us to delay it to feel better about being productive, even though we're not actually doing it. Or sometimes maybe we over research what we need to do before we actually take the action. And we can constantly be in this state of learning. I know, for example, when I was getting ready to start the podcast, I definitely did this one. I wanted to make sure I was using the right software, wanted to make sure I was using the right equipment, wanted to make sure that I was using the right hashtags and things like that. And so sometimes that kept me from just getting started. And at some point, we need to say, okay, I've done a really good job of educating myself. I know what my options are. I know that what I have in front of me is good enough to get started, and I just need to do it. So sometimes that's a way that we can limit ourselves from getting started as well. And then another one is I just need one more thing before I start. One more piece of equipment, one more piece of knowledge, one more training, whatever it might be. One more thing before I get started. But the truth is that those methods feel protective, but they usually end up keeping us off track and stuck where we're at. And the whole reason we have a goal is because we don't like where we're at and we want to move forward to the next thing. We want to be excited about what we're accomplishing. So that's why we have the goal. And we're not going to make any progress getting closer to that goal if we are stuck where we're at by using these methods. The one other method that I want to mention is that sometimes I would call it productive procrastination. So instead of going and sitting down and working on my thing, and this was especially difficult when we were all working from home and there's all the distractions of at home, but I would do laundry. I would do dishes. I would suddenly have this intense urge to like clean the baseboards and vacuum everything. And that's not something that I normally enjoy doing, but it sounded so much better to do that than to work on my chapter that I needed to write. So this idea of productive procrastination, where we feel like we're doing a lot, but we're actually really avoiding what we need to do. And it's keeping us stuck and in a place that we don't want to be. So what is possible when we finally let go of perfectionism? Well, I think it is important to do a little bit of imagery, a little exercise of envisioning yourself in that space of doing whatever it is that you're avoiding, or doing the thing that you're hoping will be perfect and doing it just okay, and see what that's like, because you're probably going to do better than just okay anyways. At least that's been my experience. So just imagining what happens when you move past perfectionism and allow yourself to move into that space of achieving or accomplishing the goal. So we want to give ourselves the freedom to start, even if it's messy, even if it's clunky, even if, I say it's going to come out on Tuesday and it comes out on Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. It's still coming out on Tuesday. It's still good enough. I don't think there's anybody yet at this point in time, if you're listening to the podcast when it's coming out, I don't think there's anybody who's like, oh, it's 8:05 in the morning. Where's Melissa's podcast? I don't think that's happening. If it is, feel free to send me a message and that'll make me feel absolutely wonderful. But I don't think we're there yet. So just giving myself the permission to get started, even though it's messy, has been really, really helpful. Having the energy to actually complete a task because I haven't depleted myself yet or burned myself out yet feels so good. Having confidence from small wins and not perfect outcomes is so good. When I sent off a draft of my chapter or paper, whatever I was working on, sending off that draft, it felt like such a relief. I could take a big deep breath. I felt so good. And there was part of me that was cringing inside because I knew it wasn't right. And I knew there was going to be some criticisms coming back, but it still was done and it was off my plate for at least a little while. And that felt so good. Having curiosity about what I'm capable of. And I think this has been a big one. Sometimes we set a goal for ourselves and we want that to be perfect. But if we're so focused on that piece being perfect, we limit ourselves from imagining what we can do even beyond that. So allowing yourself to really have that curiosity about what you're what you're capable of is really, really exciting to do and really pushes the boundaries of even what you have imagined up to this point. And then having peace in the process, allowing yourself to enjoy it and be somewhat relaxed while you're working on the thing or doing the thing, and rather than worrying about it being just right and so stressed out that you're nitpicking every little thing. Having a stance of peacefulness and joyfulness is a much healthier approach. I would argue that for sure. Okay, so how do we achieve that? We want to get to that space, right, where we've moved past perfectionism. But how do we do that? Well, here are 4 ways to move past perfectionism that have worked for me, and I think they will work for you. If you want to grab a pen and a paper, I'm going to give you 4 points that you can write down real quick, or just know that this is where you want to come back to. You're going to listen to it again later for these tips. First thing, you can use mantras that affirm your focus on progress over perfection. So saying things like done is better than perfect, or I am a lifelong learner. This is one that I use all the time. I remind myself, I am still a learner. I'm done with school. I finished that milestone, but I am still a learner. And there's a lot of peace that comes from that for me in my life. Saying it's okay to try and it's okay to try again. You're going to make mistakes along the way. That is expected. It is part of the process. Making sure that you say these things out loud. I say them to myself in the morning when I'm getting ready. I say them to myself when I'm driving sometimes. There is no perfect way to do this. Get past perfectionism. If you're going to tell yourself a mantra about perfectionism, please don't focus on doing it just right. Do it when it works for you. Do it how it works for you. If you need to say it in your head instead of out loud, that's okay. If you need to write it down on a piece of paper 10 times, that's fine too. Do what you need to do and what works for you. All right. Number 2, just do it anyway. I think Nike had it right when they said, just do it. I don't know who came up with that with Nike, but they had it. That's what you've got to do sometimes. You just do it anyways. even if you're not ready, even if things aren't polished and looking like you want them to look, it is probably good enough. It's probably better than good enough. Even if you're unsure, even if it's not perfect, action gives your brain feedback that you can do hard things. Sometimes just getting the wheels rolling, getting that momentum flowing is enough to fuel your brain and get it excited to keep going. So that action part is really important. And also, sometimes when you get started, even when it's not perfect, you learn so much from the mistakes that you're making along the way. And then you can apply those, and it's going to be even better than what you thought was perfect in the first place. So allow yourself to get started. That action is going to help you in the long run. Start the task, submit the document, the form, the letter, the book, the draft, whatever it might be. Send the message. Just do it. Just send it off, get it off of your desk. Now, a little caveat. Of course, you want it to be good. Like I said at the beginning, we do care about quality. We do care about educating ourselves and being informed and doing a good job and holding ourselves to a high standard. All of that still applies. I am not suggesting that you need to send off stuff that you didn't care about, that you did it too sloppy, that it's not going to be any good or helpful or useful. That is not what I'm advocating for. But I'm saying it doesn't need to be absolutely perfect. Absolute perfection is not attainable. It's not achievable. It's not going to happen. So take what you have, be proud of it, and then send it off. Just do it. Okay. Another thing that's been really helpful to me, especially with my ADHD brain, is setting a timer or a specific, like a task. So I'm going to finish this section of the chapter, or I'm going to finish reading this chapter, or I'm going to work for the next 30 minutes and then I'll take a break. But instead of focusing on a specific goal of having the chapter just right, or, having the loaf come out a certain way, we're just going to mix the dough right now. Okay. So just set the timer, just do one piece and focus on that rather than imagining yourself having to have that perfect finished product. A 20-minute timer, usually it depends on the task, but usually 30 to 45 minutes is a good time for me with my brain and the way it works. Figure out what works for you. You might be someone who can sit down for 3 hours and work on something. That's you. That's fabulous. That is not me. That's not how my brain works. So figure out what works for you and do that. This is going to lower this, Alexa, stop timer. This is going to lower the stakes of feeling pressure about what you need to do and really build that momentum of just getting going. Also, use this for things like writing, chores, hard conversations, or even rest. So for chores, I would say I know I need to clean the whole place, but maybe I'm just going to vacuum this room. I'll do the other room later. Keep it short and simple, break it up into manageable tasks. If it's hard conversations, we're just going to start the conversation. We don't know how it's go. We don't know how it's going to go or how it's going to end, but I know how I'm going to manage myself, my emotions, my tone, how I come at things, how I ask questions using I statements and things like that. Just get it started. If we need to stop it in the middle and take a pause, we can do that, but the conversation's not going to go perfect because we can't control the other person. So we just need to do our part and just get it started. Okay. This is going to help, especially if you're someone like me with ADHD or you struggle with any kind of executive functioning. And sometimes we know what we need to do, but getting ourselves to actually do it, that's the executive functioning part. That's the hardest part. A lot of times that's for me. I know exactly what I need to do. I know that I'm prepared. I know that I have the information. It's just getting myself to do it. So sometimes just starting will get that ball rolling, and that could be really helpful. Okay. Number 4, what would I tell a friend? Okay. Again, talking to yourself like you would talk to a friend, talking with kindness, respect, curiosity, and patience. All of those things, you would use those for a friend. You need to use that for yourself too. You would never tell someone that you love that they're not allowed to try something unless it's perfect. I would never tell a friend who's not done sourdough before, well, don't try. You're not going to get the ratios just right. So just don't even bother. I would never say that. That's ridiculous. But that's the kind of stuff that I would tell myself. Talk to yourself like you talk to a friend. If you are not going to say that to a friend, don't say it to yourself. And then practice talking to yourself like you're someone that you are proud of. Admire what you have achieved and accomplished. Be proud of yourself for what you have done. All right. So let's tie it all together real quick. Well, first, let me say, so those are the 4 things. Use mantras, just do it, set a timer to get yourself started, and then treat yourself like a friend. Okay. So let's tie it all together now. So Overcoming perfectionism is not about lowering your standards. It's about releasing the shame that is tied to the achievement piece and choosing to make progress with a stance of peace and curiosity and joy. When we let go of that need to be perfect, we allow ourselves to gain clarity and energy, and we actually get results that are probably better than what we would get if we were trying to achieve something that's perfect. So here is the big thing. Perfectionism hides that deeper imbalance in your wellness. It hides the fears, the anxieties, the worries. It covers all of that up and it clouds it as you're trying to make things so great because you're just fabulous. You've got to at least acknowledge what's going on underneath, what those underlying emotions are, and then push yourself to move forward in that direction that you're headed, in the direction you're wanting to go, even though it's going to be a little bit messy along the way. So if you are so focused on doing things the right way, you're going to neglect some parts of your biopsychosocial spiritual health. This is why I'm encouraging you, if you haven't already, to take that wellness blind spot quiz. Okay. It just takes a few minutes. It's going to help you see which areas you are not taking care of in the way that you would like to, because maybe you're over focusing on physical health and totally neglecting spiritual health. So that blind spot quiz, super helpful. I've got the link for it down below. That quiz is totally free and it just takes a few minutes. And I really think it's going to help you figure out which part you're unintentionally neglecting. Okay, so check that out. Now, that is all that I have for you today. Thanks so much for joining. If this stuck with you, please make sure that you give the podcast a positive review, whatever platform that you are listening to or watching it on. Also, please share this with somebody who you know in your life maybe struggles with perfectionism that needs a little gentle and encouraging nudge. Go ahead and share it with them. That's a really helpful way to get the podcast out and help me grow it. So I appreciate your help in that regard. Also, if you are not following me already yet on Instagram, please come over that way and find me at Heart and Health Wellness, all one word, nothing crazy or fancy in it. And I'm trying to post on there every single day, sharing a little bit of insights about what I'm doing. I post to my stories on there to get some engagement and feedback from y'all about what you're needing and what you're wanting from me and from the podcast. So be sure to connect with me there. It's a good place for us to be able to chat, stay connected, all that good stuff. Alrighty. And with that, just remember, we are always learning. We are always growing. That is good and healthy to do. I hope these tips that I've shared with you today are helpful to you. And make sure that you tune in next week. We're going to be talking about talking to ourselves kindly and what that really looks like and how you can do that. And with that being said, take care of yourself. And until next time, be well.